So today we have Allan Misner. He is the host of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, which I was recently on, and Becca will be joining him there. And we just had such a great conversation. I was like, you got to come on our show. And we're going to talk today about something that I think many people struggle with, and that is motivation. But he has a very unique way of thinking about this. So I'm really excited. Welcome, Allan. Let our listeners know who you are, where you live in that beautiful island of yours. I'm so jealous. I was telling my husband we need to get there. But just, how you got into this and what you do.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm excited to be here. I really am. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now, for sure. So, I was a corporate guy. I was C-suite material. I made the Fortune 500 C-suite at the age of 39. All the stuff we dream of. It's like, I'm successful, but I was miserable because I had kind of sacrificed my health, my wellness, my fitness, my relationships, everything. I was just not who I was supposed to be. And so I set out on this journey, I guess you could call it a journey, of trying to figure it out. How do I fix me? I'm in my late 30s, approaching and into my 40s, and I want to fix me. And I started looking around for resources. There were none. There was chair yoga and stretching. That's what they expected anyone over the age of 25 to do. And every time I tried anything else, I broke myself. And I would try different ways of eating, and I couldn't keep it up. I couldn't do it. And so people talk about hitting rock bottom. Well, I got drug along the rock bottom for like 8 years of just trying to figure it out. A little bit better, a little bit worse, a little bit, just the yo-yo stuff. And it was just, I couldn't quite figure it out. And then I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she said something to me. She said, "Daddy, will you come watch me do a CrossFit competition?" And yeah, we're from the South, so daddy is a pretty common way to say it. But what was so terrible about it was that I was sitting there thinking I should be doing that with her. She had just become a level 1 CrossFit coach. I used to be extremely athletic, and now I wasn't. And the thought that I was now turning into the spectator, which then becomes the grandpa in the rocking chair, that is then the one that's not able to make it to the wedding because they're just not in good enough shape. That was who I was becoming. And I was like, no, this is not who I'm going to be. So I sat on at this point now, I kind of had a little fire under my butt. I'm like, no, this is not who I'm going to be, not how it's going to work. So I decided, since I can't find any podcasts, I can't find any books, I can't find any resources to help people over 40 do this, I'm going to get certified and train myself. So I started going in for, NASM. I went in for their corrective exercise. I went in for their fitness nutrition. And then I went for functional aging. And I just kept getting these certs to try to figure this out because I knew it couldn't be that hard. And the interesting thing is, once you figure yourself out, it actually isn't. But that's the hardest puzzle, is who is this guy inside this head that's keeping me from being successful? And so I figured it out. I started training myself. I got consistent. And then I did the idiotic thing as I started changing. I put a big, scary goal in front of myself, and I invited my daughter to take me on with her at a Tough Mudder, just the two of us. And I didn't want to just do the Tough Mudder. I wanted to do it with her and not wreck myself. So over the course of basically 11 or 8 months, depending on how you want to start counting, I lost 55 pounds. It was 66 pounds of fat. I gained 11 pounds of muscle. And then I completed a Tough Mudder with my 21-year-old daughter, and loved every minute of it. And crossing the finish line with her is one of the most important and fundamental times in my life. It was like being reborn. So I decided that I needed to put this out there, because like I said, it isn't hard once you figure yourself out. And so I started training people. I started the podcast. Now to kind of date all this, my podcast, 40 Plus Fitness, went live in 2015. And it was the only podcast for health and fitness over the age of 40 at the time. I started training people. I created a Facebook group, a Facebook page, and just started putting it out. Okay, here I am, and I was training a few people on the side. I was still doing well with my corporate career, but I hated it. Again, it wasn't serving me. I was serving it, and there was a financial reward for doing it, but it took so much that there's just a point. So when they laid me off in 2017, I just went to my wife and said, "No, I'm going to help people. I'm going to do this. This is so much more rewarding. It doesn't pay as much, as you might guess, but it does so much more for me." And as a result, I've been able to help thousands of people lose weight when they didn't think they could. And every day I'm rewarded by knowing that I'm making people healthier in a world where everybody's getting less healthy. And again, it all starts with changing themselves and the way they think and then what they do.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like my history with exercise. I wasn't like C-suite, corporate, but I definitely CrossFit became a part of my life. I've done some Tough Mudders. I can't say I enjoyed them as much as it sounds like you enjoyed it. But it's the accomplishment feeling, right? And the step by step and kind of just getting lost in the journey piece. So I'd love for you to dive into a little bit around the mindset of it and the motivation of it. Because I know before we got online, we kind of were talking around how it's really hard to become consistent with something when you are not open to the idea of like, you're basically going to change your mental state.
Yes.
You will not be who you want to be until you are no longer who you are right now. and
Yes.
that is, it's not just here's some habits, you can kind of keep everything else the same. And yeah, you can get to your dreams. It's no, you're basically going to be reborn and to an extent. So, can you talk a little bit around how you approach that with people or like what your first steps are with people when you're working with them?
Okay. So it comes from a business concept, if you can imagine, but it's called be do have. And so if you're going to have something, you've got to start being the person that has that thing. Okay. But to do that, you really have to understand the way they think. Okay. So someone who wants to be fit but hates exercise, I want to be able to pick up my grandchild, but I don't want to sweat. I don't want to lift heavy weights. I don't want to go back in there. And so they hate exercise. They hate workouts. And that's a shame. But it's the word. It's just a frame in your head of how you're looking at it. Now, I'll tell you this story, and I don't mean to be a sad sourpuss on the story, but I just want you to understand what's at stake. Okay. I was on vacation in Puerto Vallarta. I love beaches. And so I vacation. When I vacation, it's always going to be a beach place. And so I was in Puerto Vallarta. There's this resort I go to. And I was showing up for the resort just as a massive earthquake hit. And so when I got there, they wouldn't let us in the building until the engineers had checked the whole place out. But there was a woman there, and she was just so visibly upset. I mean, so shaken and literally just bawling. And I know people get upset with natural disasters. Things are happening. There's an emotional component, and people really emote during that period of time. So I just went over to just figure out if I could comfort her in any way. Just say, "Hey, are you okay?" Um, it turned out what happened was during the earthquake, they were in the building, her husband and her. He was not capable of walking down the steps, and she was, but she was not capable of helping him down the steps. They couldn't use the elevator, and he couldn't get down the steps. So she had to leave him there in the building that's shaking during an earthquake. And now they sent some people in. I asked if I could go get him, and she said, no, they've sent people in. So I said, okay. And I sat with her, but she was so visibly shaken by this. And I was thinking to myself, I would never want to be him, and I would never want to be her. And so the concept that I teach, one of the first concepts is that we are not exercising. We are not just working out. We are training to be the human that we need to be. If we want to play golf until the last day we're alive and die on the golf course, then train to do it. If we want to be able to take care of ourselves, in fact, take care of our spouse, train to do it. And that's what it is. Fit for task is kind of the concept when I'm coaching someone for fitness, is to just basically say, you have it in you to live a long, full, healthful life and be there with people. My daughter is now the daughter I did the CrossFit, did the Tough Mudder with, and then started actually doing CrossFit, workouts with when we were traveling. She's now pregnant, and I'm going to be a grandfather. Now, that's a grandfather at 59 years old. We used to have babies younger. They're having babies older. So if I start thinking about this new grandbaby that's born, I want to be able to crawl around on the floor with them. When they start playing sports, I want to be able to run around and play with them and do all those things. And I think about forward when they get married, when they graduate college, I'm in my 80s, 90s. When they have their first baby, I'm in my 90s. I don't want to be the rocking chair grandpa. My mother was not able to fly to see my daughter get married, either of our daughters. And I really hate that for my mother and my stepmother, mother-in-law, but also for our daughters who didn't have their grandmothers at their wedding. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And I'm not much for dancing, but if I'm in my 90s, I won't care what people think anymore. So I want to be out there dancing. So, it's just, you start thinking about fitness, you got to change your mind frame. This is not work. This is not exercise. It's not some futile thing. You're building yourself. You're building your future self to keep the things that you love and the experiences that you want to have and the things that you need, which is independence and ability to take care of the people around you.
So notice that he didn't say anything about weight loss in there, ladies. Because I feel like that's what everybody, yeah, you can lift heavy and get toned and get ripped or whatever and have the physique that you want. But I think majority of people, like you're saying, go about it the wrong way. And they're thinking
Yeah.
about it solely for weight loss, especially the cardio bunnies.
Well, but we're going to talk, we're going to talk about the motivation map that I go through as a learning tool for my clients so they understand the approach, because that'll come.
Yeah.
The human body it's amazing. If you really think about the gift of the human body, it's a biological machine that we live in that can get better if we do the right things for it. It can heal if we do the right things for it. There's not another machine like that anywhere. Nobody's ever come close to inventing anything like us, the body that you have. And when you start doing one thing well, it creates an effect where you want to do other things well. And so if you start with one thing that's easy to say, hey, I want to be independent when I'm older. I don't want to be like, and it's unfortunate, but we can all look forward to, we can look at somebody in our family that is, they got older, they got sicker, and then they lost things. And it was tragic watching them get old. It was tragic watching their last years. And I don't want to be that way. So if I don't want to be that way, I'm going to start exercising, working out, training, actually. And then because I'm training, I'm going to know, well, my body needs the building materials, the protein, and I don't need as much of the crap. So I start eating a little better. And, if I'm lifting and doing these other things, I'm building my body stronger and more resilient. My metabolism is held in check and it's working well. The body weight just comes off as a side effect to just wanting to be healthy and fit. And so, no, this is not about dieting. This is not about temporary things. This is about figuring out what works for you. And then over time, figuring out ways to make it easier and easier to do the right things and harder to do the bad things.
Put those roadblocks in the way. That's what I say, right?
Yes.
create roadblocks for yourself so that,
Yeah.
you don't just have the ice cream sitting around when you just all of a sudden have a thought that pops in your head at 9 p.m. like, I should have a bowl of ice cream.
It's the bumpers on the bowling alley, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think a lot of times too with cravings and, all the urges that we have for these things, those are oscillating. Your emotions, your cravings, they come and go.
Yeah.
And if you can endure for 10, 15 minutes, maybe if you're in an environment a little bit longer, like I know for some people the craving for alcohol, if they're at a party, like that might last more than 5 or 10 minutes, right? But it's not going to last forever. And something that I, try and remind my clients of is like, you're safe, you're taken care of. There's nothing going wrong right now. It's just an uncomfortable feeling, right? It's an uncomfortable feeling because you're used to doing something else. And so, something Liz and I talk about a lot is being proud of the new decisions that you're making, not
Yeah.
looking at them as a burden, not looking at them as, oh, this sucks so much. I don't like everyone else gets to enjoy things. Why can't I enjoy things? It's like because you're becoming a better person. You're becoming who you want to be. And isn't that exciting? Doesn't that feel good? Like when I finish a day of doing something hard, whether it's, oh, trying a new eating plan or I just did a cold shower or whatever it is, I'm like, oh,
Don't do
feels so
cold showers.
oh god, so good for the nervous
I
system.
hate those.
I know, but I like the benefits just make it worth it.
Yeah.
It's like you feel so much better afterwards, and so being proud of yourself and changing that mindset. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit on, the motivation map where you talk around values and habits, and you talk around the groups and the peers, and how you can sometimes you can cheat the system a little bit. You can make it a
Yeah.
little bit easier on yourself. So walk us through the motivation map that you use with your clients.
Okay. So the way most people look at motivation is as this magical force. It's like fairy dust. It just shows up. It shows up on Monday and it shows up on the first day of the year, or the first day of the month. And particularly when Monday is the first day of the month or the first day of the year, that's a special, special blessed day. All the motivation in the world, all the motivation fairies are sprinkling and the world is wonderful. And then 3 weeks later, the dust is gone. The
Or like
motivation is
3 hours
gone.
later.
Yeah, and so whatever it is, it's just it. You think, okay, well, I'm going to stay motivated because I really want it this time. I really, really, really want it this time. So I'm just looking for that motivation to just show up every day, and then there's going to be a day when it's not there. And I hate to tell you this, but even after you've been doing this for a decade or more, there's going to be days that the motivation doesn't show up. It's not fairy dust, okay? And this is going to sound backwards until I finish this, but you don't get motivation from outside as a force. You earn it. You have to do something first to get motivated. Okay. People say that kind of sounds backwards. It's a paradox. It is a paradox, but let me explain. Okay. So there are two layers or two levels, if you can think of motivation, two types. One is the extrinsic type, which is called accountability. So that's someone else is holding you accountable. And then there's the intrinsic inside of you, which is self efficacy. Okay. Most people try the self efficacy first. I'm going to go on the diet. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to drink this much water. I'm going to sleep this much at night. I'm going to turn off my computer. I'm going to do this and I'm going to meditate for an hour. And and then, yeah, the motivation's not there and they fail. And they're like, they think they're failures, but it's only because they didn't start with the easiest thing first, which is the accountability. Okay. So accountability is very powerful in that we want to be consistent with what we say we're going to do. Okay. We want to be a good people. Okay. We want to be respected. So there are two layers inside this side of the map. And so if you think about accountability, on the leader layer is just like your boss. If your boss at work says, I need this report tomorrow, you got to stay late to do it. That's the accountability. You stay late and you get the work done because your boss is going to be looking for that report. You could hire a coach. So with health and fitness, that's the easiest, fastest way to get accountability. You
Amen.
find the right coach for you and you say, hey, I want to get stronger. I want to lose weight. And they give you some tasks and they say, I will hold you accountable to this. Either if you're doing it in person, you meet them in the gym. We're going to work out Monday and Friday, meet you in the gym, and we do the workouts. I want you eating this. I want you eating that. Log your food. I'm going to take a look at it. So online, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, here's your workouts. I want to see that you're doing them. I'm going to check in on you. Here's your nutrition plan. I want you doing this. I want to see this. And we're going to have regular meetings and we're going to talk about how this is all going so I can hold you accountable to the things you tell me you're going to do. And if you're consistent with doing those things, you start to get results. So that's at the leader level. Now, there's a social level here, and a social level is very strong as well. And this is peers. And people think of peer pressure. When I say the word peer pressure, oh, that's bad. Those are the people in the bar that want me to drink. No, that's just those peers. If you get better peers, they will hold you accountable to better actions. So this could be where you join a spin class or a running group, or you find a friend that you now are working in the gym together as training partners. Okay. And so now you have this accountability at a social level, and it almost makes it fun. So if you really want to do accountability, you could do both. And they're not hard to do, they're pretty quick. But you want to be careful because they're not permanent. You're not going to hire a coach and say, you're my coach for the rest of my life, so stay alive. And if, I've had women, it's so funny, they're going to walk with their sister. I'm like, that's awesome. And then they stop walking. I'm like, what happened? Well, my sister turned her ankle, so we can't walk. Okay. Yes. Right. Exactly. But we can't walk because she's so dependent on that accountability. Okay. So eventually we want to move this over to the self-efficacy, which is inside of you. And this is the stronger of the two types of motivation, but they also take longer to build. So not a good place to start. You want the accountability first. Now, the leader level of self-efficacy is actually you. You are the CEO of your body, the CEO of your health. And so you've got to start making some management decisions, self-management. These are where the strategies and tactics come in. So I was struggling to work out consistently for a very weird reason. I lived about an hour away from my office. And so I wanted to work out in the afternoon. And so I needed to pack my bag in the morning and have my gym bag because that I was going to use it and I go work out. Invariably, I would leave something out of that bag. It would be a pair of socks. It would be a shirt. It would be the shorts. One day it was one shoe. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? How do you miss packing one shoe? That's just not even possible. I'm doing something to sabotage myself. I don't know why, but there's something in there that's keeping me from doing this. And so I had to set up a strategy and a tactic to make sure that my gym bag was ready every day. So what I did was I laminated a list and made this idiot proof. Everything that needed to be in that bag was on this laminated list. And I would sit down while I was brushing my teeth each night and go through the list, make sure everything was in there. Then put the list in the bag, take the bag by the carport door. So as I was leaving, I would literally have to step over it to get out of the house. Now I had my gym bag with me every single day and I didn't miss another workout. So that's the self-management where you start putting the strategies and tactics in place to make it easier to do the things you want to do. You remove friction. Now, you also want to add friction to the things you don't want to do. So another example, I would arrive in the office on some Fridays and there was these donuts. They were called Spud Nuts and they were made out of potato flour. And they were undeniably the best donut on this planet. And if I went in there, I was eating 3. Okay. So if I came off the elevator, the first thing that hit me was the smell. But then I could see the people in the break room chumming like sharks on chum. They're just, and I was like, oh my God, it's Spud Nuts. Okay. And so I just knew if I smelled that smell and saw that sight, I'd beeline to my office. put my bag down, grab a little bag of pre-prepared nuts that I had ready to snack on. I'd go to the break room, get my coffee, stand as far away from them as possible. I'm still being social. I'm not the weird guy who locks himself in his office to avoid this thing. I'm still there. And then for the rest of the day, I had a rule. I can't use the restroom on this floor because I've got to walk by that break room. I don't go in that break room if I want more coffee. So I'm going to go to a different floor every time I want to go to the bathroom or I want another coffee, which had the added benefit of adding steps to include stairs to every trip I took to the bathroom or to get more coffee. And so just those two little strategies and tactics made it harder for me to get the spud nut. So I put resistance between me and the thing I didn't want to do. And that helped me be more effective in not doing that. So that's where the strategies and tactics come in, as we make it harder to do the things we don't want to do and easier to do. So we clear all the alcohol out of our house. We clear all the bad foods out of our pantry. If I'm going to go get a snack, I got to go to the store. And I'm not necessarily going to do that at 10 o'clock, unless I really, really, really want it. But that's going to put a break and make me think about it. I'm probably not going to do it. So we just do that. Now, over time, what happens then is we now start to get into the social layer. This is the social layer of you. And so this is where you start building habits. I have my gym bag packed. I'm going to the gym every day. That just became a habit. Pulling the list out while I was brushing my teeth, added benefit while I'm doing that, brushing my teeth, I brush my teeth a little longer. Okay. So I'm doing these things that are making it easier, making it better, and I'm getting consistent. So I'm starting to get results and I'm starting to build the habits. And then I'm starting to build the values. And here's the magic of this internal habits and values. So you imagine someone who says, I'm going to go for a walk 30 minutes each day. And they're doing the walk and they feel pretty good. So they're like, I'm going to jog to that fence post. And then the next day. And each time they go, they're jogging a little bit more and they're walking a little bit less. And they're like, I think I could do a 5K. So they and a friend go do the 5K. They love it. They get the t-shirt, the medal. It's all a big party. They really enjoy that. They're already ready to look for more and sign up for more. And they're buying the shoes and they're buying the all the shorts and all the stuff. And now they begin to identify as someone different, as you mentioned. Now they identify as a runner, or they identify as a CrossFitter, or they identify as someone who doesn't eat crap, or someone who doesn't drink anymore. But as you go through this process of strategies and tactics, then you have this huge opportunity to build identity. And when you've built identity, now you have your whole process of motivation, because it's intrinsic. You still have your accountability with a coach if you need them. You have your friends, who are probably different friends than you had before, who are your social group that's holding you accountable. You are continuing to refine your strategies and tactics, particularly as you set new goals or change paths or whatever you're doing. And you identify as an entirely different human being who treats your body with love and respect and kindness. And that's where true health and fitness comes from.
Yeah, and I think going through the process, myself, I would say that throughout all of this is where you build confidence. Like I
Yes.
remember where I was over 200 pounds, hiding behind baggy black clothes. Like I didn't want to go out on dates. I would drink before I went on the date just to get a little bit of a confidence boost. And, people often only think again about what that instant, gratification is going to be in terms of like the scale moving quickly, or they often only think about all the things they have to give up and they don't look at all the things that they're gaining throughout the process. And like essentially for many people like myself and yourself and Becca as well, it's a whole new lifestyle, right? All of us left
Yeah.
corporate to do what we do today. And it's much more fulfilling, as you said. And the thing that I think about is, what's the life to live if you don't enjoy it? Right?
Yeah.
Or you don't feel well. I actually just saw a post this morning. I think we're going to do a podcast on it because I thought the person made such a great point. And she was saying that, some people can get so caught up in this like non-toxic culture or like finding the root cause and their healing journey that they go so overboard with it. And then they're isolating themselves and they're not finding the group that they need and the peers and the community because they're so afraid to mess things up. And then they're not living. Right. And so I think we have to find this balance along the way. And a large part of that starts with the right community. I definitely did not have a community when I first started, and that made it 10 times harder.
Yeah,
So,
and I didn't either. So if I didn't have that kick in the butt where my daughter made me feel like a spectator instead of a participant,
yeah.
it would have been so much harder. Now, I did go on MyFitnessPal, not necessarily the ideal group, but I was putting my data in there, just again to hold for some form of accountability, even if it was just an app. But it was just one of those things. I'm like, okay, I need this. And so, you're right. So as I went through this, and the reason I didn't want to go back to corporate was, okay, I've lost the weight. I'm much stronger. I next turned my focus to what's next. And I was like, I need to improve my sleep. So I did a lot of work to really bear down and figure out how to sleep as well as I possibly could, and let my body do what it needs to. So I actually stopped setting an alarm. And unless I had a flight before 6 o'clock in the morning, I never set an alarm. I would just go to sleep at a good time and know that I would wake up refreshed before I had to be somewhere. And then when I got laid off, that was the next thing, is like, okay, now I've been in this stressful job for so long. Can I go without that stress? you know? And that was the move, is like, yeah, I can go without that stress. I'm not going back to corporate. I'm going to make this work. My wife and I decided that it would be a pretty cool thing to live on a Caribbean island that doesn't get hurricanes. And because the hurricanes were stressful, I was like, when I didn't stop working to be stressed out. I stopped working so that I wouldn't be stressed. But hurricanes kind of stress you out when you have a house on the beach. So, well, what can we can do better? And so we found ourselves a little place down here. And I love being in Bocas because I can live a very low stress life. I have everything I need, lots of sunshine, lots of opportunity to move around, and great food. Um, so yeah, it's like you just tackle one right after the other, and it's almost like a series of dominoes. You knock down the first one, the second one's easier, the third one's even easier than that. Now, I'm not saying everybody leave your corporate jobs today, but just realize that there are things in your life that are serving you, and there are things in your life that aren't. And you really have to think about those that aren't and why you're keeping them in your life.
So, what would you say, just in terms of the motivation map, where do you find that people get stuck the most on
I
that?
think they skip the accountability. They skip past it, and they're just focused on this. I want the new diet. Well, this new diet sounds so cool. This new workout. I'm on YouTube looking through things, and she's doing this workout. She looks great. So here's the story of looking great. This is going to date me a little bit, but Sean T did the insanity workouts, and I was trying to figure this out. And I go in, and I'm watching Sean T on the infomercial. Do they even do infomercials anymore? I don't know, but I'm watching this infomercial. It looks great. They all look like they're having a blast. They're bouncing around. There's no equipment. I'm like, this is perfect. I can take this on the road. I travel so much. I don't have to worry about a gym. This is going to be so cool. So I buy the set, and I burn all. This is where the dating goes. Is I burn all the DVDs onto an iPad, and I'm like, I'm set. So that Sunday, I'm flying out Tuesday. So that Sunday, I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the benchmark test. So this isn't even a workout. This is just the benchmark test. And I wake up Monday morning, and it literally feels like someone just sat there and beat me with a baseball bat all night long.
So
Every muscle in my body hurt. I'm reaching over to the phone, and I'm like, I'm in so much pain. I have to call off of work. And I'm literally calling off of work because I did a freaking benchmark test. And so I never did a single one of those workouts. When I turned in that same iPad, it had all those on there. I never watched a single one, never did a single one. And so it's that skipping ahead to the things that look cool and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, without first sitting down and saying, okay, who am I and what do I need? And you really need the mindset stuff. You need the accountability. And that's going to drive you. Because women can do this too, but men almost always are going to do this. Ego is going to break you. If you're over 40 and you start trying to train, you're almost always going to do something because your ego is going to outpace your body. And so with men, I have to talk about ego. With women, it's a different thing.
Women have impatience, is what they have.
They have impatience and stubbornness, for sure. And that's not a bad trait. Stubbornness is a great trait in the right circumstances. But for one of my clients that came in, she said, I am not going to work out. And I'm like, okay. She wanted to lose weight. I'm like, okay, we'll focus on nutrition and other things that are important to you, but we won't be working out. So I asked her, I said, so tell me something that upsets you in a day-to-day basis. And she says, well, when I walk out to my car, I get winded. I'm like, okay. So tomorrow when you walk out to your car, before you get in your car, I want you to do one lap around your car. And then you can get in your car and drive. She did that and it was hard. And then a couple days later, she's like, it's getting easier. I'm like, okay, 2 laps. Within about 3 weeks, she was just walking around the neighborhood because she could. Okay. Didn't do a single workout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. I think a lot of women, because obviously we work mainly with women, and men are, not to take this the wrong way, but they're more simple creatures.
Very simple.
Women are fragile. They are, they have lots of ups and downs. They're very emotional beings. And I think that the motivation piece, so many women that talk to us on social media or, send in questions or whatever it might be, they've tried so many things and they like the shiny objects, like all the things, and they've wasted time not doing things, one, long enough, probably, but two, in the right order, too.
Right.
And I think that, like in your example with insanity, it's a really intense workout, right? And I'm sure if you had had a coach or you had had a mentor that would have been like, hey, one lap around the car first, right?
And Sean couldn't see me to see, okay, dude, back it down,
No, but and I think at the end of the day, the investment that you end up making just buys you your life back. Like, how much longer do you want to struggle with this? How much longer do you want to see results and then lose results, see results and lose results? Or how do you want to maybe invest so that you know the path, how to do this for yourself long term? Because a good coach and a good mentor is not just going to give you a plan and say, go and do this plan. They're going to tell you why, they're going to tell you how it's going to change, and they're going to tell you how to maintain that long term. And so that mentor piece, that leader piece, that getting the external accountability piece is the shortcut.
Yes.
Like if there was ever a shortcut, that's it. It's finding someone that's walked the path for you. And I think that, I love that you put the extrinsic versus intrinsic, and how the problem that people have is they try the intrinsic first, and no fault to anyone. Like, yeah, I'm going to try and do this myself.
Yeah.
Screw other people. I don't want to waste the money. I'm just going to figure it out. But when you've gone months and years and decades still not having figured it out, like, at what point have you now wasted the money that you could have invested?
Right. And you're talking about something that's really important. It's another mind frame. Is we have a money mind frame. And it's a very interesting dynamic, because if someone sat there, if your car broke down and someone said, okay, it's going to be $2,000 to fix your car, you would groan,
Figure it out.
and then you would hand them your credit card. Okay. But you go to talk to someone, and in the training is even less than that. And they're like, okay, so this is what it's going to be. Oh, no, I'll do this on my own. Now, that's because we have a very wrong mind frame about money. So it was funny because here in Panama, they sell lottery tickets on the sidewalk. So you're walking down the sidewalk, there's these guys, they're selling lottery tickets. Now, the top prize is like 10 grand. So no one in the United States is going to buy those lottery tickets, because if it's not 9 figures, I'm not putting a dime in. Okay. But 9 figures, that's life-changing money, right? Well, in Panama, $10,000 is sort of life-changing money for these folks. So it's life-changing money. But let's talk about what life-changing money is. Imagine you made an investment of $2,000 and you lost 25 pounds. You're stronger. You feel better. You're better to your spouse. You have more energy at work. You have more energy after work for your kids. Your whole life is better. And now your health span is more aligned with your lifespan. So you're able to enjoy so much more out of your life. Wouldn't that $2,000 be life-changing money? So we think of money as this, oh, I got to hold it. I got to have it. But if we invested in ourselves, and I've never in my entire life been upset or regretted investing in myself. Every investment I've ever made in myself, it paid off so much I can't even tell you. I paid for all the certifications because I couldn't find a coach that could coach me with me traveling as much and knew anything about coaching someone over 40. And I obviously couldn't do the workouts that a 20-year-old could do because that would break me. So I had to figure that out. And I had to invest the money, thousands and thousands of dollars into courses to learn what would work. I remember one time I went in to walk into a gym. It was $35 for walk-in fee. Here, take my money. Take my money. And they're like, wait, that's more than I pay in an entire month. Yes, for most people it would be, but I needed that workout. So here, take my money. So if you're looking at this from a spend perspective, you're looking at it wrong. It's an investment. It's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your future self and all the things that you get from being healthy and fit. So hiring a coach might seem like a pretty large thing. It is large because of the results, because of the value of what you're going to get. The money itself is actually a very, very small thing because you would drop that on your car in a minute. You got to drop it on yourself.
Yeah, and I think another way to think about this, especially for the people that we work with, I was actually just chatting with someone on Instagram, and she's been doing tests on herself apparently for the past 5 years and trying to self-treat and buying all these supplements and trying different protocols. And she's still in the same spot that she was. And so it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, I think there's a big thing to think about in terms of the time that you
Yeah.
lose, right? Because that's the most priceless thing any of us have. And so for some individuals, they're actually getting worse over time because the dysfunction in their body, right? That metabolic disease is getting worse. That high blood sugar is turning into type 2 diabetes. The burden on your liver is turning to non-alcoholic fatty liver. And, all of these things that eventually walk people right into multiple ailments and medications and disease and dysfunction. And then they can't walk down the stairs because they have, whatever it might be, rheumatoid arthritis, ALS, the list goes on here. And so the way that I also think about it is, how can I have that person, like a coach or a practitioner, whoever it is, who has walked the path and the journey before me and has all of the knowledge, scale me faster, get me there faster. So like this particular person, 5 years, right? She's been trying to do this. Okay. I didn't ask her, like, how much money have you invested here? But it's just that's the sole thing there that I think about is time.
Yeah.
She'll never get those 5 years back of her life living miserably, not being able to travel, go places because you're so ill, right? Or fatigued. So I think that is a big one. I also think that through this process, as we start to wrap up here, community is so important and support, because even though you have accountability, for example, if they're working with you, okay, Alan, this is great. But then I go right back into my environment at work where everybody is surrounding me and tempting me, or my home environment where my
Yeah.
husband doesn't get it. Why are you the only one that's sick? Why are you the only one that struggles to lose weight? Just eat less. Like, we hear that a lot. And like, these men,
Yeah.
unfortunately, don't get it.
Yeah.
Even my husband does, he runs our sales team and he talks with husbands sometimes. And, like, having conversation and hearing him be able to share with them how life changing it be is powerful. But a lot of times the man is not present. Right. And so they just don't get it. And so I think that's really another hurdle that many people struggle, is their support system. So find that, like you said, if it's even an online community, it's the MyFitnessPal community, whatever. I think that's so important, because we've had people in our community even just exchange numbers and have somebody to text outside of just your practitioner to say, hey, I'm struggling today, or hey, check it in. How you doing? Something along those lines, because we need that. We are human
Yeah.
beings who need connection. So I'm glad that you brought that up here. And, I would, when you said peers, I would think about people who are on a similar path that I am, right? Whether it's
So
weight
it'll
loss.
understand it, right? Because again, as a man, I have to tell women, it's like, you're going to have to be patient. You're not going to lose weight as fast as your husband, because sometimes I will train couples
Mm.
And I'll say, okay, you're not gonna go at the same rate he goes. I just, let's put that out there. I don't want you to set improper expectations and feel like you're failing because he's succeeding, or he seems like he's succeeding faster than you. Because men have more testosterone, men have more muscle mass. When a man cuts back his calories, he's much more likely to lose weight than a woman will. Okay, but that's okay. You just have to understand that it comes from getting healthy. And if you measure it from a health perspective, you're probably actually healthier than he is, even though he's losing the weight faster. So if you go through this process and just realize I'm going on my path at my pace and accept that, it makes the journey that much easier because you're less likely to quit when it gets hard, because it will get hard, and there are going to be plateaus. And so just being on your own path, not worrying about what anyone else did, is what really matters. I've had women lose 35 pounds in a very, very short period of time, but other women come in and they're doing similar things and just not get the same results. That's because we're all bio unique. So
Mhm.
even men being different from women, women are different from women. You don't know what their thyroid and your thyroid, you don't know their estrogen and your estrogen. And there's so many different things that can be going on in your body that we need to work on first. And if we're doing the self care, we're doing the right things, over time, you get healthier and you lose the weight.
Yep. I actually was just working on a post. I haven't shared it yet, but I pulled together like 30 different pictures of my journey and different phases of my journey over the years, because often I'll share about dealing with rheumatoid arthritis as a child. And I actually found these pictures at my highest weight. Um, I think I was 13 in that picture. And it's just crazy. And I was listening to another podcast. And one thing that stuck out to me is like, quit trying to speed up a process that's not meant to be sped up. And I was like, gosh, I would have been in a much better spot much earlier had I stopped trying to do those quick fixes, the fads, the instant gratification. I mean, Becca and I have shared many things that we've done in our life, trying to get fast results. The Beyonce diet, I did the 17-day diet. I ended up throwing up in my office on day 4 because it was so bad.
I almost passed out at soccer practice in college because I was on like hot water, lemon juice, and cayenne pepper 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad.
So I just think like I thought that was a perfect quote to pull here. Just for people, you got to play the long game. You really have to think about longevity. As you said before, you're training for life, you're training for function, you're training to be dancing on the dance floor at
Yeah.
your granddaughter's wedding. And yeah, I mean the coaching is obviously invaluable, but I think the other big piece that you talked about intrinsically to, and the internal changes that you have to make. I always say it's not so much about unbecoming, but it's more about becoming the person that you're meant to be or that you desire to be, right? Because you mentioned something early on too. It reminds me of a book that I read called Act as If. Like if you
Yeah.
want to be this version of yourself who feels good in her skin, who feels confident, to have dates or have just intimacy with somebody and good relationship with yourself and others to move through life in the way that you desire, you ultimately have to act as if you are that person already. Otherwise, you will never get there. And so many good nuggets in here. I hope that people share this. If you are on social media, tag Allan, tag us, let us know that you're sharing it. And with that, thank you so much, for coming on the show, and let everybody know where they can find you, get more of you, listen to your podcast.
Well, it's the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. You can find it exactly where you're listening to this one. So just look for 40 Plus Fitness. I'm Allan Misner, so you can just look up my name. I'm the only Allan Misner on the planet. So any Google search, any search at all, that no one else is going to come up but me. So if you're looking for different social medias, that's it. I'm really easy to find, but 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. I'm approaching my 700th episode, so there's plenty there. And if you like this show, I interview some awesome experts, to include the ones I'm speaking to right now. So you'll find their interviews there as well. Well, Becca's soon, but yeah,
Yeah.
well, they'll be on there soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.